Then we have the prophets. Sometimes God spoke through his prophets to let us know what his will and his intentions were. Amos, Samuel, Isaiah, Ezekiel. God's prophets brought many, many messages from God. Some of them were messages calling the people to come back to him. Some of them were of impending doom. Some of them were how he wanted things to be going. But he used his prophets all the time to tell people what was going to happen in the future. They kind of foretold what would happen in the future. They also would commentate on the events of the day, but a lot of times the prophets were telling the people what God had intended for them in the future. Sometimes God spoke in a gentle voice. Samuel heard God calling in the middle of the night. He awoke and he heard a gentle voice in the middle of the night. But he knew it was God. He knew that God was speaking to him. So God kind of tailored the way he came to people by their personality. Sometimes it was very dramatic. And usually the first time that God spoke to these figures, it was dramatic. But then later, as he established a communication with them, it became less and less dramatic because he had their ear. He had them listening. So maybe we should have something dramatic happen to us to get us to listen. I don't know. Something dramatic happened to me, made me start to listen. So maybe that's what it takes. Maybe we need to be hit over the head with a 2x4 sometimes before we start listening to God, or before we start listening for God. But let's hope it doesn't take that with you. And then as preachers, Jonah didn't want to be a preacher. God called Jonah and told him to go to Nineveh and tell the people there that they better straighten up or he was going to destroy their city. And what did Jonah do? Jonah ran. He said, I'm getting out of here. I'm hiding. I'm going to hide out. I'm going to get as far away from this guy as I can, and I'm just going to do what I want to do. How'd that work out for old Jonah? He ended up in the belly of a whale, and then he got spit out. Then he went to Nineveh, and then he told the people in Nineveh, here's what God said. He said, if you don't repent of your evil ways, I'm going to destroy your city. And amazingly, they listened to him. Sometimes people actually listen to the preacher. They get the message. So the people in Nineveh got the message. They repented of their evil ways, and God spared them the judgment. And then, if we look at some of the things that were from the temple, there were special sacred objects, the Urim and the Thummim. These special objects were sacred, and they were used to determine God's desire in matters that were critical to the Israelites. The Israelites were God's special chosen people, still are. So when critical decisions were to be made by them, he had the Urim and the Thummim, which were kept on the breastplate of the high priest to help them discern what his will was. And then there's God's judgments. Before Jesus, God expressed his displeasure with people by judging them. And we read about many of the judgments. We heard about Sodom and Gomorrah. And there were many others throughout history and look what God did to the Israelites. He exiled them into Egypt. Then he brought them back out. So, when God was really mad, he might have them defeated militarily. He might bring a drought. He might bring a famine, pestilence, diseases. So, when God was peeved at you, you were pretty sure you were going to know it, because one of the ways he expressed that displeasure was by judging.